Hello and welcome back to the Hidden Breach in our third Malifaux 3rd edition battle report. Today you will be witnessing a game of Neverborn versus the Explorer Society. Yeah, you heard right, I finally managed to paint the English Ivan crew and we managed to record a battle report about it, so you will have the pleasure of seeing us clash. Christian is going to play the Dreamer, so I'm facing off against my worst nemesis right there. We got some improvements to our overall video format. We improved the flip cam and added another camera perspective for a better overview. Also, those little red dice try to indicate how many wounds each character has, so you can keep better track of it. If you like those improvements, please leave a comment and please subscribe to our channel because it's the only way to reliably find our new videos. And with nothing more to say, we are going into the scenario and the crew selection. In today's mission we play the strategy corrupted Ley Lines with Wedge as a deployment zone. We play as schemes, breakthrough, hidden martyrs, deathbeds, catch and release, and research mission. And here you have an overview of today's schemes. Crew selection, attacker first. I play English Ivan as my master with hidden agenda. Mr. Mordrag. Then I play Corvus Rook as my first henchman. And Gibson the Ward as my second henchman. Furthermore, we got Eva Havenhand, we got an operative, and we got the bellhop porter and the alpinist as versatile enforcers. I take 7 soulstones into the game. Christian is playing the Dreamer. His totem, Lord Chompybits. Hinamatsu as a versatile henchman. The enforcer, Teddy. The versatile enforcer, Serena Bowman, a stitched together, a daydream with the upgrade Ancient Pact, another daydream with the upgrade Ancient Pact, and the wicked doll. Christian takes 4 soulstones into the game. You're going to see the schemes now, so close your eyes if you don't want to spoil yourself the pleasure of finding out during the game. Alright, you can open your eyes now. Okay, I give you an overview over today's terrain. We got 2 of the larger boulders. They are played as height 3 blocking and impassable. And the small boulder beside them is played as height 2 blocking impassable. Got the strategy markers, of course. Height 5 blocking impassable. On the left side we have some market stalls. They are being played as height 2 concealing terrain and destructible. We got 2 of those big stones. They are played as height infinite, blocking impassable. And we are playing the whole circular base of the terrain piece as a line of sight blocker. The well in the middle is concealing destructible. The next market stall is also concealing. The little shed beside the tree is also played as concealing terrain. All trees are concealing impassable. We got 2 little ponds or lakes. Those are played as severe terrain. And the upper right side we got the locomotive. The locomotive is being played as height 3 blocking climbable terrain. We got an assortment of boxes. Boxes are played as height 2 blocking destructible terrain. And the smaller gray rocks are being played as height 3 blocking climbable. The large piece of rock there is being played as height infinite blocking impassable. There is a passage through it. The road as well as the rails are just for decorative purposes because it would have been too much terrain. And then this piece of terrain is concealing severe terrain. And we got our 2 fog banks, which are dense concealing terrain. And last but not least, we got a stranded wagon, which is also like the locomotive, height 3 blocking climbable. And the rest of the scattered terrain on our table is being played as height 2 or height 1 blocking and destructible. And then we got a little additional info regarding the camera perspectives. This is the top cam. And now I'm pointing in that direction, and then you can see our new camera, which we will use throughout this battle report, and now we can start. We are in the deployment phase. I've deployed the first half of my crew. English Ivan and the Battleporter standing next to the rails. Mr. Modric is behind the boulder, and Gypsum DeWalt is hanging back a bit. Now Christian has deployed his whole crew. Hinamatsu is leading the charge from the middle. Lord Chompybits is on Christian's left flank. The Wicked Doll is hiding behind Lord Chompybits. There we got the two Daydreams in the back, and Dreamer, Serena Bowman, stitched together, and Teddy are hanging around the pond and the shed. I've deployed the rest of my crew. The Alpinist and the Operative are next to Mr. Modric. Corvus Rook is hiding behind the Battleporter. Right behind the big rock we got Eva Havenhand. And now we're going to see the initiative flip of round 1. And those are the cards for the English Ivan crew in round 1. And those are the cards for the Dreamer crew in round 1. Christian has used the Soulstone to get some new cards in round 1. Initiative flip round 1. Okay, that's 11 to 9. And Christian gets given the initiative. First thing to happen is the Daydream. The Daydream tries to lead Nightmare on the Stitch and fails the 2. Christian cheats a 5 to pass, and the Stitch together moves along. The Daydream then concentrates and uses Lucid Dreams, takes out the 2, and draws a card due to Ancient Pact. I activate Gypsum DeWalt, and he tries to go for a Mechanical Firefly and fails with a Black Joker. Good beginning of the game. Then he takes a walk action and uses These Dark Delights, passes, and drops a shadow marker right on the rails. The second Daydream goes and tries to move Teddy, fails, he cheats a 7 and Teddy moves along. Then the Daydream concentrates, uses Lucid Dreams, Christian takes out a 6 and draws a card due to Ancient Pact again. I use my pass token. Then Christian activates the Dreamer. First he tries to summon a Madness, he uses a Soulstone for Mask, fails with the 6 and cheats an 11, which he got from the Ancient Pact card draw. Then he uses his bonus action, fails with the 2 and cheats a 9 to succeed. Everyone within 3 inches gets shielded +1 and gets to push 2 inches. Then Dreamer takes a walk action and concentrates. I activate the Alpinist. He interacts to take the Lodestone token from Mr. Modric and then moves into base contact with the marker and is done. Lord Chompybits takes a double walk action, uses Lucid Dreams to take out a 3. Then Eva Havenhand leads off with Secret Passage, passes with a 9 and teleports on the other side of the boulder. She then drops a scheme marker and uses her bonus action Lock Away. On the scheme marker, passes with an 8, so everything within 2 inches of the scheme marker is now concealing terrain, and enemy models can only use walk or disengage action while in the area. Then I look at the top 3 cards of Christian's Fate deck and put them back in another order. Christian activates the Stitch together and uses Lucid Dreams to look at the 3 cards I just looked at and takes out the 4. Then the Stitched takes a walk action and concentrates. I activate Modric. Modric uses Shade Step, passes with an 8, and then charges the Stitch together. He uses Reach Through for the Stitched, which is 5 against movement. We end up at 17 to 10. As a straight flip, I draw moderate damage, which would be 3, but is reduced by 1 because of Shielded, and by 1 because of Armor, so the Stitched only takes 1 damage. Then I go again, we end up at 15 to 15, which is a double negative flip, and I do weak damage of 2, which is reduced to 1 because of his armor. Modric gets poisoned +2 because of the bloated stench ability of the Stitch together. Then Teddy goes, uses Got Your Back on the Stitched, passes, pulls the Stitched out of the melee engagement, and then charges Modric. We end up at 14 to 7 for Teddy. I cheat to 14 to 9 to give him a negative flip, and he does weak damage of 3. Then he discards a card to Flurry and attacks again. We end up at 18 to 14 and a negative flip, and he draws severe damage of 6. That kills of Modric. Mordrake dies, gets placed right beside English Ivan, heals 2, loses all conditions, so loses his poison, and Ivan takes 2 irreducible damage. Then Teddy moves back to be within 2 inches of Dreamer. Then the Battlereports goes, uses At Your Service, passes and gives English Ivan shielded +1, and then takes a walk action up the rails. The Wicked Doll goes, tries to use Creep Along, and fails with a 4. Christian decides to not cheat that, and the Wicked Doll instead takes a double walk action around Lord Chompy Bits. The Operative goes, as he is within 4 inches of the Alpinist. He uses the Alpinist aura to get into the rain unhindered, then uses Ambush to move 3 inches, and then shoots Teddy. She gets a plus flip for concealing terrain, and we end up at 15 to 14. I get a negative flip for damage, do 2 damage, which goes to 0 because of armor and shielded again. Hinamatsu goes, takes a walk action, and uses Lure on the Battlereports. Wins with 15 to 12, and the Battlereports moves. Then Hinamatsu uses Aggressive Stance and passes. The Battlereports passes his Willpower duel with a 9. Christian then summons a Insidious Madness into base contact with the Battlereports because Lure is a Willpower duel. I activate English Ivan. English Ivan uses Shade Step and passes with the Trail of Dusk trigger, so he can lay Shadow Marker into base contact with himself after moving. Then he uses his attack action Black Soulstone, which is a shockwave. He fails with the 2, and I cheat the 6 of masks to get the swift action trigger. Serena, Dreamer, and the Stitch together must do a movement 13 duel or take 2 damage, but they all miraculously pass the duel. Then I do the action from the swift action trigger, I pass, and they again have to do the movement 13 duel. Serena passes, but Dreamer fails for 1 damage and the Stitch together fails for 1 damage. Then English Ivan targets Dreamer with Runic Siphon, and Christian uses Protected to give the attack over to Teddy. I have to do a Terrifying check and pass with 13. I use my Concealing plus flip for Crows, and we end up at 12 to 18 in Christian's favor. I cheat to 19 to 18 with a second Crows. The negative flip does 2 damage, reduced to 1 because of armor, but due to the Intercision trigger, I can summon a Daver into base contact with Teddy. The Daver has Made to Kill, so gets to do free attack after placing, and fails the Terrifying check, so Teddy heals because Feed on Fear and is on full health again. Last but not least, English Ivan uses Runic Siphon on Dreamer again. He chucks a card to give it over to Serena, and I use my +4 Cross trigger. We end up 13 to 5 on a Black Joker for Christian, and I declare the Shadow Pin trigger. The straight flip nets me severe damage of 5 and staggered. The damage is reduced to 4 due to shielded. Then Serena goes and tries to heal the Stitch together. She fails with the 3. And he cheats a 10, the Stitch together heals 2 damage. Then Serena charges and attacks the Diva through Teddy, but fails 7 to 15. And then she attacks the Battlereports over the Madness, and fails 13 to 18. I activate Corvus Rook, who takes a walk action, and then charges and attacks the Madness, fails his Terrifying duel, and ends his activation. The Insidious Madness then goes, attacks the Battlereports, gets the Red Joker, and ends up on 20 to 13. Christian declares the Siphon Life trigger, gets a straight flip for 4 damage, which is reduced to 3 due to the armor. Then he attacks again, gets 18 to 16 on a negative flip, and does 2 damage, which is reduced to 1 due to armor. Then, last but not least, the Deva goes and attacks Teddy, passes his Terrifying check, fails the attack with 10 to 14, tries again, and fails his Terrifying check and ends his activation. Alright, we are going into turn 1 summary. Mr. Mordrake got destroyed and returned to his homeland. Ivan and the Alpinists are hanging the backline. Eva is next to the big rock. Battlereports and Corvus are in a melee with the Insidious Madness. Ivan and the Operative are hanging out in the severe terrain. The summoned Daver is punching Teddy and vice versa, and the whole Dreamer crew is hanging back at the lake or at the shed. Hinamatsu is hiding behind the rock, and Lord Chompy Bits and the Wicked Doll are trading stories from days back. Christian has marked this strategy marker and I marked that one. And that's the overview, and we're going into round 2. Here you see the hand cards for the English Ivan crew round 2. And here you can see the starting hand for the Dreamer crew in round 2. Initiative flip round 2. We get to a draw because of the Ancient Pack, and then we reflip, and it's 3-2 for Christian, and Christian starts. He activates the Madness in the middle and attacks the Battlereports. He red jokers me for 20-18 and declares the Siphon Life trigger. Gets a negative flip and does weak damage of 3, which goes to 2 because of armor. Then he attacks again, getting to 19-8 for a plus flip, does weak damage, and the Battlereports dies to drop a scrap marker. Then the Madness uses Lucid Dreams and takes a 5 out of his deck. Then Ivan goes. Ivan spends a Soulstone for Crows on Runic Siphon and shoots at Serena. I end up at 10-17 and cheat in the red joker for 20-17. Get a minus flip and do weak damage of 2. The Intercision trigger allows me to place a Deva into base contact. Serena dies and Christian has to chuck a card for Demise Eternal. He chucks the black joker and Serena heals 4. Then the Deva makes his mate to kill action, but fails 13-15. Ivan then again uses Runic Siphon on Serena and spends the plus flip from Concealment for a Cross trigger and fails 17-18. And one last time, again I spend a stone for Crows and use the plus flip from Concealment for a plus flip, and we end up 11-14. I cheat to 17-14 with Shadow Pin trigger, and I flip weak damage of 3, so Serena's down to 1 health. Then Ivan goes for a Shade Step, passes, and moves over just a bit. In hindsight, I think I forgot to edit the Soulstone that I used on the second shot, so just subtract 1 from my Soulstone total at this point. Then he activates Serena Bowman before she dies. She uses Bottle of Painkillers on herself, passes, and heals 1. Then she attacks the Deva. We end up at 9-8, and he gets a negative flip and does moderate damage of 3. Then she does it again, ends at 8-10, but he cheats to 14-10 for a negative flip, does weak damage of 2, and declares the Loyal Servant trigger. And the Loyal Servant trigger is used on the Stitch Together. He draws Severe, and the Stitched heals 3, and is at full health again. I activate Eva Havenhand, who uses immediately Lock Away on the scheme marker and passes. Then she uses Hidden Passage and fails with a 6. But I cheat an 11 to pass and teleport next to Serena Bowman. Eva uses her Electric Whip on Serena. We end up at 19-10 with Shadow Pin trigger. The straight flip nets me severe damage of 4, and Serena dies first time ever in any one game I ever played against Dreamer, which is a great moment. Then the Daydream takes a walk action and attacks the Deva with his focus. It's 17-13. The straight flip does 2 damage and the Deva dies. Then he uses Lucid Dreams and takes out a 7. He uses Accomplice on Teddy, discards a 5, and then draws a card for Ancient Pact. Then Teddy immediately activates and attacks the Deva in front of him. He fails with 7-16. He does it again, and we go to 18-18 for a double negative flip. He does weak damage of 3 and declares the Bowl Over trigger, pushes the Deva towards Ivan, and pushes after it. Then he discards a card for Flurry. We end up at 17-16 when a negative flip, and he does moderate damage, which kills the Deva, and both Devas drop a shadow marker into base contact with themselves. Then I activate Gypsum the Ward, who takes a card from the discard pile and chucks another card for the suit on that card. He uses Mechanical Firefly, but fails again with a 2. Then he uses These Dark Delights and passes, drops a shadow marker, and uses Antiluminal Bridge on that shadow marker and the one up the board. And last but not least, he takes a walk action. Stitch Together goes, does Lucid Dreams, and then charges Eva. He discards a card to get a straight flip, but ends up on a 6-13 and uses his last AP to concentrate. I activate the Operative, who uses Ambush to move up, and then use her Derringer on the Stitched. She gets a double plus flip for concealing and friendly fire. We end up 16 to 13. The negative flip does 2 damage, which goes to 1 because of armor. I do it again, and we end up at 13 to 11. This time the negative flip does moderate damage of 3, which goes down to 2 because of armor again. Daydream goes, takes a walk action, uses Lead, Nightmare and Dreamer and passes. Dreamer moves over, and then he lucid dreams and then draws a card. I activate Mr. Mordrag, who does a charge action next to the shadow marker and uses the anti-luminal bridge to teleport next to the Madness. He attacks the Madness, passes a terrifying duel, but fails the attack 12 to 16. Then he uses his Shade Step ability, passes, teleports over next to the severe terrain, and drops a ski marker into base contact with himself. Lord Chompybits does a double walk action and uses Lucid Dreams. The Alpinist then goes, uses a walk action, and then uses an interact to throw the Lodestone token over to Corvus Rook. And then he uses 50 feet of Silk Rogue on Ivan, fails, but I cheat the 7 to pass, and I push Ivan towards the Alpinist and out of Teddy's engagement range. Then the Wicked Doll goes, uses Creep Along on Lord Chompybits, passes, and then takes a double walk action to get up the board. I then activate Corvus Rook, who tries backroom dealings on Hinamatsu but fails 16 to 18, and then starts attacking the Madness, passes his first terror duel, and then lands at a 20 to 12 for a straight flip without any trigger, because I won't declare that one, and the straight flip does weak damage of 2. I attack again, pass the terror duel, and end up at 17 to 8 with the execute trigger. The straight flip does severe that time, which is 4 damage, reduced to 3 because of incorporeal, and Christian chucks a card to avoid being executed. He then activates Dreamer, who takes the double walk action to the middle strategy marker, and tries to summon a Madness. Fails with a 7, but of course, he has an 11 of Mask on his hand and summons another Insidious Madness into the game. Then he tries his bonus action and fails horribly. Then Hinamatsu goes, concentrates, and uses Lure on Corvus Rook. We end up at 18 to 7 in his favor, and I can't do anything about it, so Corvus walks his move towards Hinamatsu, moves through the Insidious Madness, and ends up in base contact with her. So summary of round 2. We got Ivan the Operative and the Alpinist hanging out in the severe terrain. Gyps in the ward is nearly getting mauled by Chompybits, I guess. And then as in the middle, still happy at the end of round 2. Hinamatsu and Corvus are on a date due to Lure. The main bulk of the Dreamer crew is up there at the pond. Points wise, Christian gets 1 point for the strategy because he has 2 markers at this point. And I also get 1 point because I got the bottom left marker on my side. Then Christian gets research mission because of Lord Chompybits. Then I get research mission because of Corvus Rook. He's in 4 inch of a scrap, a strategy and a scheme marker there. And I get a hidden Martyrs point because the Bellhop Porter died and Mr. Mordrag is still in play. So it's 3-2 for English Ivan versus Dreamer as we go into round 3. Those are the hand cards for Dreamer, and Christian uses a stone to upgrade his hand to this. And these are the hand cards for the English Ivan crew. And I also spent a Soulstone for a severe upgrade. Initiative flip for round 3 ends with 10 to 5 for Christian, and he decides to begin. He activates the Stitch Together, who uses Lucid Dreams and takes out a 1. Then the Stitch Together attacks Eva with Gamble Your Life and uses Focus for a straight flip. We end up at 19 to 8. He has a double plus flip and draws the Red Joker for 6 damage. Then he draws a card because of the trigger. Then he attacks again with a Sharp Claws, and we end up 19 to 11, and the straight flip does 4 damage and Eva Havenhand dies, dropping a corpse marker. The Stitched heals for 1 damage because Feed on Fear for the Gamble Your Life attack. The Operative goes and shoots Dreamer. He gets a plus flip because of Concealing and Serene Countenance and ends at a plus flip. She fails 9 to 12 anyway. Then she does it again. We end up at 16 to 11, but Christian cheats to 16 to 17 and the attack fails. Then the operative uses ambush. Lord Chompy Bits then goes and charges between the operative and Gypsum the Ward, attacking the operative. We end up at 18-7, and I cheat to 18-14 to give him a negative flip. The damage flip does weak damage of 3. Then he uses Trail of Gore, takes away the scheme marker, and attacks the operative again, hitting with 14-10, and the negative flip does moderate damage of 4, killing the operative. With his last AP, he attacks Gypsum the Ward. We end up at 11-8 for a negative flip, which does moderate damage of 4, and I use a Soulstone and reduce the damage by only 1. Then Gypsum the Ward goes and draws a card and chucks a card to get the mask trigger for the rest of his activation. He uses his attack action Mechanical Firefly and fails heroically for the 3rd time with a 1. I this time cheat in a 7 with the Nuclear Shadow trigger to make it go off. The Madness, Dreamer and Lord Chompy Bits and Mr. Mordrake has to do a Willpower 13 duel or get distracted +2. Mr. Mordrake fails and gives the distracted +2 to English Ivan. Lord Chompy Bits passes, the Stitch Together passes, Dreamer fails, but he cheats to pass. Then Gypsum the Ward uses Chromatic Aberration on Lord Chompy Bits, passes his Terror check, and then I get 17-7 because Christian draws the Black Joker. Lord Chompy Bits gets distracted +1. And then he tries to use these Dark Delights and fails to draw 4. The Insidious Madness activates and charges Gypsum. He attacks and we end up at 18-19 with Under Pressure trigger. We get a negative flip which does 2 damage. Christian decides not to declare the trigger after all. Then he attacks again, 16-7, and the straight flip does 2 damage. I use a Soulstone and reduce the damage by 2. The Madness heals 2 times for 1 damage because her Feed on Fear ability. And then she uses Lucid Dreams. I activate English Ivan. English Ivan uses Runic Siphon on Lord Chompy Bits. I pass the Terrifying Duel with the Red Joker. Lord Chompy Bits gets a minus due to Blinded by the Light from Gypsum the Ward's aura. And I use my Distracted and Concealment plus flips for double crows. We end up at 19-13, and the straight flip does severe damage of 4, and the Intercision trigger summons a Brocken Spectre behind Lord Chompy Bits. Then I use Runic Siphon versus the Dreamer. We end up at 18-15, and the negative flip does 3 damage, reducing the damage to 2. And last but not least, I try again, 14-12, but Christian cheats to 14-17, and I cheat to 17-17. Dreamer gets damaged for weak damage of 2, which gets reduced to 1 for incorporeal, and takes 1 damage for cheating against the hidden agenda. The Daydream goes, takes a walk action, uses Lead Nightmare onto Dreamer, and passes with the Red Joker. He uses Lucid Dreams to take out a 3, uses Ancient Pact to draw a card, and then chucks a card to use Accomplice on Dreamer. Dreamer summons an Insidious Madness. He spends a Soulstone for Mask, fails with a 9, and cheats an 11 to summon a Madness. Then he uses his bonus action and passes. The Daydream gets shielded and can push 2 inches. And then Dreamer takes a double walk action toward the top right marker. At this point, Christian has no Soulstones and just 1 card, so I activate Corvus Rook, who attacks Hinamatsu. I use Price of Progress to take 1 damage in exchange for a Crow's trigger. We end up at 14-12 with the Execute trigger, and the negative flip does 2 damage, which is reduced to 1 due to armor. The Execute trigger forces Christian to ditch his last 13 that he has in hand. And then Corvus Rook goes again. I use Price of Progress for Crows again. We end up at 19-17. I flip weak damage, which doesn't matter because Hinamatsu gets executed. Then the Daydream goes and attacks Corvus Rook using his focus. The straight flip goes to 16-17, so the attack fails. Then he tries to lead Nightmare on Teddy and fails too with a 4. And then he uses Lucid Dreams and draws a card for Ancient Pact. Next activation is the Brocken Spectre, who uses Hallowed Glory. Hallowed Glory forces all models within 6 inches to take a target number 12 movement duel or push 3 inches towards the Brocken Spectre. Every model in base contact at the end of this action takes 2 damage without any resistance. The Stitch Together passes, Teddy fails and gets pushed, Chompy passes, Chompy's in base contact and takes 2 damage. Then we do it again. I fail with the 1 and cheat a 10 to pass. The stitch together passes, Teddy passes, Lord Chompybits passes, but Lord Chompybits takes 2 damage again and dies. Then Christian activates Teddy, who takes a walk action and then uses Terrorize on Mr. Mordred. We end up at 18 to 17, and Mordred gets pushed back by 2 inches due to the severe terrain. Then Christian summons a Madness into base contact with Mr. Mordred because of the failed willpower duel. I play a pass token. The freshly summoned Madness attacks the Alpinist with 17 to 40, and the resulting negative flip does weak damage of 2, reduced to 1 by armor. Then Christian can summon the third Madness into base contact with the Alpinist due to the failed willpower duel. The second attack goes against the Alpinist again. We end up at 17 to 15 with the Siphon Life trigger, and the negative flip does weak damage of 3, reduced to 2 by the armor. Then the Madness uses Lucid Dreams and takes out a 2 of it. Then the Alpinist activates and walks right through the Insidious Madnesses and uses 50 feet of Silk Rope against Corvus Rook. He fails, but I cheat the 10 to pass, and both get pushed toward each other. Corvus Rook is pushed against the middle strategy marker, and the Alpinist is pushed out of the terrain. He's still engaged with Teddy, so he tries to do a disengage. Teddy hits him with 17 to 14, and the negative flip does weak, so the push is reduced by 2 to a 3-inch push, and the Alpinist pushes out of Teddy's engagement range. Then the last Madness goes and charges within 3 inches of Corvus Rook, attacks Mr. Mordred for a 14 to 12. The negative flip does a moderate damage of 3, and Mordred dies again, gets teleported to English Ivan, heals 2, and Ivan takes 2 irreducible damage. And then the Madness uses Scatter and pushes Corvus away from the strategy marker again. Then I activate Mr. Mordred, who heals 2 because of English Ivan's aura, and then uses a Shade Step. Passes with a 7 and teleports over. He eats a shadow marker with his inbuilt Ramps trigger to heal to full HP, and then charges Teddy. He fails his terror check and tries again. This time he passes with the red joker. I hit with a 12 to 9. The negative flip does 2 damage, which is reduced to 1 by the armor. And last in this round, the Wicked Door goes, takes a walk action and drops a ski marker into my deployment zone. Summary turn 3. The Wicked Doll sitting in my deployment zone with a scheme marker. 3 summoned Insidious Madness jumping up and down on my table half. Mr. Mordred, Broken Spectre, Teddy and the Alpinist are in the middle next to the strategy marker. Dreamer has tagged the third marker for Christian. Corvus Rook has been pushed away again. No strategy marker for me that round. We got 2 Daydreams in the backfield. Eva Havenhand died, Hinamatsu died, the Operative died, Lord Chompybit died. Nevertheless, it looks like the Dreamer is taking the upper hand. I don't get a point for strategy. Christian gets another point for the strategy because he has 2 or more marker tagged. And then he gets another point for his second scheme, which is Breakthrough. So it's 4 to 3 for the Neverborn, and then we go into round 4. Here see the hand cards for the Dreamer crew round 4. And those are the hand cards for the English Ivan crew. And I use a Soulstone to upgrade my hand. Initiative flip, round 4. We both have +2 to the initiative flip. I win out with 6 to 5. And Christian cheats to 14 and begins. He activates Teddy and attacks the Alpinist. He hits with 16 to 15, and the negative flip does weak damage of 3, and the Alpinist goes grab marker. Then Terry attacks the Brocken Spectre, fails his terrifying check, and cheats a 9 to pass. He first fails with 8 to 16, and then cheats to 17 to 16, the negative flip doing weak damage of 3. Then he uses a card for Flurry, fails his terrifying check, and does not cheat it. I activate Gypsum the Ward. Gypsum the Ward draws the 10 of Tome from his discard pile and discards the 7 of Rams. He uses Mechanical Firefly and this time passes first go, again with the Nuclear Shadow trigger. Everybody has to do a Willpower 13 duel or get distracted +2. Both the Madness, Teddy have to do the Willpower duel. The Madness 1 passes, the Madness 2 passes, but Teddy fails and gets distracted +2. The Brocken Spectre then gets an attack on Teddy because of the Nuclear Shadow trigger. He passes his Terror duel and hits with 13 to 10 the negative flip doing weak damage of 2 irreducible damage on Teddy. Then Gibson uses these dark Ley Lines and paths with the red Joker and builds an anti-luminal bridge between those two markers here. And then he uses Chromatic Aberration on English Ivan, needing a 7, but although he gets a positive flip due to concealment, he fails the action anyway. Then the Daydream activates and uses a walk action, uses Lead Nightmare on Dreamer, passes, and then he uses Lucid Dreams and takes out an 8 of his deck. Then he draws a card due to Ancient Pact. I activate English Ivan, who uses Runic Siphon on Teddy, passes his terror check, and I first myth with 13 to 17, but then cheat to 18 to 17 for a negative flip. The damage is weak 2, reduced to 1 due to armor, and I can summon a Diva into base contact with Teddy because I got a double Crows trigger. The Diva uses his mate to kill action, but fails the terror check. I don't want Teddy to heal again, so I cheat in a 7, but the Diva fails the attack with 9 to 13. Then Ivan uses Shade Step, then Ivan uses Shade Step to teleport to the shadow marker and teleports to the other shadow marker at the bottom of the map via the anti-luminal bridge. Then he uses Runic Siphon on the Wicked Doll, hitting 19 to 10, and the straight flip does 3 damage and kills the Wicked Doll. Last AP, English Ivan attacks the Insidious Madness, passes his terror check, and although he has a plus flip, draws a double 1 and fails the attack with 7 to 8. Christian then goes and activates the second Daydream, who does Lead Nightmare on Teddy and passes. Teddy moves out of the engagement range, but so that he is still engaging everybody else, and then the Daydream concentrates, does Lucid Dreams, and draws a card due to Ancient Pact. I activate the Brocken Spectre, who does the classic Hallowed Glory action. I pass, and the movement 12 duel resolves as follows. Teddy passes, one Madness fails, second Madness fails, both get moved, and the last Madness passes. The Madness in base contact with the Brocken Spectre gets 2 damage. Then the Brocken Spectre does it again, fails, and I cheat the 6 of Mask for the staggered trigger. Teddy passes, the first Madness fails with the Black Joker, the second Madness passes, the last Madness passes, and the Stitch Together fails and gets pushed against Teddy. The Brocken Spectre then uses his bonus action Envelop in Shadows, passes his Terrifying Duel against Teddy, but utterly fails to hit him with 10 to 18. Christian activates the first Madness, who uses Scatter, and then charges down towards Gibson the Ward. He hits me for 12 to 11, I cheat for 12 to 14, and then he cheats to 14 to 14, and double negative flip, flips the red Joker for 5 damage, and Gibson the Ward dies finally. Then the Madness uses Lucid Dreams. I play a pass token. The Stitch Together activates, concentrates, and then uses Gamble Your Life on the Brocken Spectre. He passes his terror check, then he fails with 9 to 17, but cheats in the 13 from his Lucid Dream pile, so we are at 19 to 17. The straight flip does 2 damage, but he cheats in a severe for 5 damage, and the Brocken Spectre dies, dropping a shadow marker. I activate Mr. Mordrag, who tries to use Drag Under on Teddy, passes his terror check, but fails with 7 to 8 on the attack. Then he Shade Step teleports and uses the Trail of Dust trigger to drop another shadow marker. Then he walks around the marker. Dreamer activates and uses a triple walk action to get nearer to my deployment zone and the 4th strategy marker. I activate Corvus Rook, who uses 1 walk action, then does his bonus action Backroom Dealings on the Daydream. We end up at 17 to 4 because Christian gets the Black Joker. I'm finally able to look at his hand cards, which are a 9 and a 13 at this point. Then he charges next to the Daydream and the strategy marker and attacks the Daydream with 18 to 11. The straight flip draws the Black Joker. Then the second Madness goes, takes a walk action, drops a ski marker and uses Lucid Dreams. I activate the Diva, who does a double walk action. Then the last Madness activates, takes a walk action, drops a ski marker and uses Lucid Dreams. So we are at the summary of turn 4. I got 2 Madness in my deployment zone and the Dreamer on the right side. The last madness is in the middle. English Ivan is the last defender of my deployment zone. Mr. Mordrake is in the middle, waiting for the lodestone. Then we got Stitch Together and Teddy, the two daydreams in the backfield, one at the strategy marker in the upper right, and my Deva has run away. Points wise, Christian gets the 3rd point for the strategy because he has already 3 marker tagged. And I get finally a 2nd point for the strategy because I attacked the marker in the upper right corner of the map. So right now it's 5-4 for the Neverborn, and let's see what we can do in round. So we are finally in round 5. Those are the hand cards for the English Ivan crew. Those are the hand cards for the Dreamer crew. Initiative flip round 5. We are still at +2 for Christian because of the Ancient Pacts. We end up at 3-6 in favor of Christian. I cheat to 6-6, but he cheats to 6-7 and chooses for me to take initiative and begin the activation. And I activate English Ivan. English Ivan takes a walk action to draw a range on the Dreamer and uses Black Soulstone to drop a shadow marker in base contact with the Dreamer. He fails. I cheat a 9 of masks for the swift action trigger. Dreamer passes the movement 13 duel, and I try the action again due to the trigger, but fail the duel. Then I spend my very last Soulstone for a positive flip and used the concealment plus flip for a cross trigger. I'm very sure at this moment that because I got the red joker in hand, I can kill the Dreamer and deny the last strategy point, at which moment he uses his focus and pulls the red joker from his deck, beating my score 11-20, and my plan falls to bits. Then Ivan tries a haphazard shade step, but fails with a 2. Christian then goes, activates the Daydream at the top of the map, who concentrates and attacks Corvus with focus, fails 15-16, and uses Lucid Dreams, takes out 12 and draws a card. I use a pass token. Dreamer goes, takes a walk action towards my deployment zone, drops a ski marker there, and takes another walk action to end in base contact with the strategy marker. I use a pass token. The Daydream shoots Mordrake with focus, ending 15-8, and the plus flip does 4 damage. Then he tries again with a negative flip, but fails with 6-8. Then Lucid Dreams and draws a card. I use a pass token. Then the Stitch Together activates, walks and charges Mordrake. He hits with 12-9. I cheat to 14-12 and then he cheats to 14-14. The negative flip draws weak damage of 2. Mordrake gets killed. At the respawn beside Ivan, healed by 2. Ivan takes 2 irreducible damage. And I play my last pass token. One of the madnesses activates, walks over, drops a scheme marker, and uses Lucid Dreams. The Deva uses a double walk action to walk over towards the middle again. Teddy does a double move to stand in front of the middle strategy marker to block off Corvus Rook. I activate Mr. Mordrake, who heals 2, then takes a walk action. Then he uses Shade Step, passes, teleports towards the middle, takes a shadow marker to heal himself to full health, and then takes a walk action around the strategy marker. The last madness activates, walks, and scatters Mordrake away from the middle strategy marker. And after all, I activate Corvus Rook, who just drops a scheme marker into base contact to ensure that I get a 2nd point for research mission. Summary of turn 5 and end of game. Points wise, I do not get a 3rd point for my strategy because the Lodestone token is nowhere near any marker. And Christian gets the 4th point for the strategy because Dreamer has tagged the bottom right marker. He gets a point for breakthrough because he has 3 scheme markers in my deployment zone. He gets research mission because he has 3 models within 2 inches of different marker types. Then I get a point for hidden Martyrs, and I get another point for research mission because Corvus Rook, Mordrake and the Deva are within 2 inches of different markers. And the game ends at this point with 8-6 for the Neverborn. Alright, welcome to the post game of Dreamer versus English Ivan. The game ended 8-6 and it was a well-earned victory for the Neverborn, I think. Remember that you're listening to a translation of a Discord conversation Christian and I had about like 3 weeks after the game when I was finally finished with editing. Okay, question 1 was, how did the initial plan you made before the game work out, and why did you hire the models that you hired to fulfill that plan? So Christian's initial plan, again, Christian's lineup was the Dreamer, Lord Chumpy Bits, Hinamatsu, Teddy, Serena Bowman, stitched together, 2 Daydreams with Ancient Pact and the Wicked Doll. Originally, he wanted to use Teddy and Hinamatsu to push the Lodestone carrier off the strategy markers, either with Lure or with Terrorize or the Biol over trigger from Teddy's melee attack. On the other hand, he was planning to summon Insidious Madnesses all the time, did kind of a better job than the original models he hired. Scheme-wise, he had chosen Research Mission and Breakthrough. He says Research Mission is an auto-take against English Ivan because I'm dropping that many shadow markers, and together with the strategy markers you only have to drop 1 kind of marker. Also we had some models, I think 4 overall, that could, no, 5 models overall that could drop scrap markers as well when they died, so that was an easy 2 points for both of us. And then he had Breakthrough. Breakthrough, he actually planned to do Breakthrough with the Wicked Doll, and always had in mind that he could summon more Insidious Madnesses to fulfill that goal, which in the end did also happen. So I think his long-term plan and strategy was well thought out and well executed. The other schemes were Hidden Martyrs, Deathbeds, and Catch and Release, and all of those he thought of as being more difficult to achieve. Deathbeds would have been a possibility, but would have been more difficult, and the other one would have been just 1 point for him or no point at all because he did not have the models to effectively do Hidden Martyrs. From my perspective, the game played out more or less as I expected it to play out. I had the Research Mission because it's an obvious choice for Ivan and very easy to achieve, and also Hidden Martyrs on Mr. Mordrake and any model you like that you want to sacrifice for the point will work out like 4 times out of 5. Your enemy has to bring something to stop the demise ability of Mr. Mordrake or apply heavy pressure on Mordrake and Ivan to hinder you scoring that second point. That went well, but I think I hadn't really a good plan for the strategy. I was hoping that the Alpinist could run around a bit more and probably score me some points. But yeah, all those moving my Lodestone carrier of markers was very bad for me scoring that objective. I think the English Ivan and the Corrupted Ley Lines strategy aren't best friends. If you lose either Haven Hand, your mobility is 0, and most of the high mobility skills that you have are places. And I think throwing around the Lodestone between movement 4 and movement 5 models is very ineffective. Granted, I don't have all of the versatile models yet. I think that Vernon and Wells as well as the Botanist would have been good choices here because of the speed and because of planted roots, so you couldn't push them off markers. But hey, there's another thing. We will see it in a later battle report, I guess, when I built and painted them finally. So the second question was, did you make any big mistakes? And his answer was, yeah, I did make 2 big mistakes, and one was punished, one was more or less punished. First one was that he allowed me to execute Hinamatsu, so he was too greedy and chucked 1 card too many, so I could execute her like round 3, which is a great deal, because I think if Hinamatsu had survived that turn, I would have been in big trouble. I wouldn't have scored 6 points. I would have probably scored 4 maximum. And the second mistake he thinks he has made is moving the Wicked Doll into the middle of my deployment zone instead of moving the Wicked Doll to the outer right corner of my deployment zone, where she would have been kept safe from anyone. And yeah, he did move her in the middle, so Ivan could go there and explode her. And the Wicked Doll would have been a fallback option for Dreamer to give the Lodestone token to if Dreamer died. For me, I think I've probably clumped up too much in that Concealing Dense Severe Terrain piece. I had like 3 models in there, and yeah, I got stuck somehow. Would have been better to move out a little bit farther. Then I think that my focus fire was way off mark. I brought the Stitch down to 2 health and Teddy down to 5 and 1 Madness down to 2, but nothing really died. I should have been more focused in my efforts to get models off the table. And biggest mistake in my opinion was teleporting Eva Havenhand with the Hidden Passage over to finish off Serena Bowman, who had 2 health at this point and would have been finished off by anything, really. Would not have been a big deal. It was just a waste of Fever Haven hand. Okay, she died quite unluckily in 1 activation from the Stitch together, but yeah, that can happen. It's a very fragile model, but it's a very important model. It's a big deal to lose it. Next up we had, what do you think of the matchup in general? And I think the score of 8-6 represents the matchup in this strategy quite well. I don't think that you can really beat a good Dreamer player with Ivan in this strategy if he knows what he's doing, unless you have an insane amount of luck. I think that all my Umbra models do not like all the terrifying checks they have to make to get off stat 5 attacks. And it's more of an inbuilt health function for the Dreamer Cruise models. And as you've seen, he has a better way to dispatch of my summons than I have of dispatching his summons, because those Insidious Menaces are insanely durable. And the last question was, what would you change if you could play this game again? Christian thinks that he would probably drop the Wicked Door, because he does not think it would be necessary to score breakthrough, and the 3 Soulstones would have come in handy, doing more summoning or not getting executed round 3. Apart from that, Christian is quite unsure if Serena Bowman is a good choice in the Nightmare Crew still, after the nerf. Defense 5 and 2 less health are a big deal for her durability. It was literally the first time she died ever in a game that we had, and it was the first time I played against her after the nerf. And I must agree, she's way more easy to take down now than she was back then. Instead of Serena Bowman, another option would be another Stitch together. Keep in mind that we are not playing with out of keyword Myrtles right at the moment, because I don't have the model pool. I for my part think that both versatile models I took could have been dropped for Vernon Wells and the Botanist, or for another Operative, which are pretty good against all the Terrifying and Serene Countenance I had to face, or the Intrepid Emissary to have a tank for Ivan and position myself more aggressively. Don't know if it would have worked out, but I think I'll give the Botanist and Vernon Wells a try in that kind of scheme pool, for sure. So I hope you guys enjoyed the new battle report, and subscribe to our channel to see more of our videos in the future. And I say goodbye from me and Christian, and see you around.